Okay, let's talk about the best controller layouts for your controller. So first and foremost, let's get the taps out of the way. Tap jump, honestly, I keep it off. I don't like how it gets in the way of using up special and up smash and up tilt, up attack in this game. Tap strong, I like keeping it on, but honestly, if you're playing somebody like Raster, you probably don't want to have this on. It gets in the way of you using aerials unless you're using C-stick for all your aerials. Tap wall jump, this one's up to personal preference, but I personally don't like it because it gets in the way of if you're touching the wall and you press back to drift backwards, you end up wall jumping. But then if you have it off and you're holding against the stage and trying to jump, then you'll always get your wall jump. So I guess up to personal preference for that one. All right, if you have to use D-pad movement, it's probably because you don't have an analog stick on your controller. So if you're using like a hitbox or maybe a fight pad and it's not recognizing your controls in game, you might want to turn on D-pad movement so that that's a thing and you're not just taunting in your matches. Auto walk's a little bit neat because if you turn it on, you walk everywhere. So instead of sprinting everywhere, you walk everywhere. And then if you had the walk button, it just essentially is like a sprint button in a first-person shooter. Adjusting stick sense makes every control stick the MVP because you can adjust your dead zones and how far it goes for your cardinal directions. And then for the right stick, you already know what I'm gonna say, personal preference. Unless you're that bird guy, because again, the bird really needs adaptive because it lets you do tilts out of your run because it treats them like strong, so you get to break the game and do your tilts out of a run. Because he's the only character that can do that, which is kind of cool. All right, let's get on to Gamecube. Gamecube has a similar layout to what it used to in Rivals 1, which is essentially you would have A as attack, B as special, X or Y as jump, and then one of those face buttons, so like Y or X, would end up being your strong button. But if you really want to force this game to be Smash Bros or Melee, you could turn on tap wall jump, tap strong, tap jump. Now for the shoulder buttons, you only have 3 of them, so they're very valuable. What you could do is you could set one to shield, one to grab, and then the third one to whatever you like. But honestly, I like setting one to shield, setting Z to jump to make instant aerials a little bit easier, and then the left one to either be a walk mod, so I don't have to be super precise with my control inputs, or putting it as a button that is hard for me to do. That could be parry, that could be grab, that could be whatever you want. All right, now for the generic controllers, this one's similar to the GameCube layout, but with the face buttons being all equal, it makes a couple different variations easier to use. So on your face buttons, you're gonna have attack, strong, jump, and special. On the shoulder buttons, you're gonna have parry, grab, and shield. And then your choice of either the walk mod or a jump. Honestly, I find these more useful. And personally, I like putting the jump button on the shoulder buttons. Especially because if you're used to the bumper jumper style from shooters, or if you have a paddled controller, being able to jump with a shoulder button and then keep your finger on the right stick for aerials is super useful. And then with the R3 and L3 buttons, you honestly can put whatever you want on them. On the left stick, you could put something along the lines of either parry is one that I've seen, or the walk mod, so you can just push down on the control and then you'll be able to move left, right, up, and down with tilts. Or if you have auto walk on, you can literally turn the left click in to be like a sprint button, which, I mean, hey, if that's what you like, that's what you like. Lastly, we have the fight pad and the leverless. If you're using a fight pad, I'd probably just set the third buttons on each row to be a grab and a parry, and then add a attack and a jump button to the shoulder buttons, depending if you have 2 or 4. So last we got the leverless, and there's 2 types of leverless I want to talk about. There's the hitbox style, and then there's the box style that's for like melee. For the FGC type of leverless, you have 4 movement buttons and 8 available face buttons. For these buttons, I recommend that on the top row and the bottom row you have special or attack as your first button, and then we make sure that at least one of the buttons on the second row is jump. And the reason that you want it jump here is so that you can do things like aerials out of shield and jump into special. I normally like having above or below the jump button a strong button because you're not really going to be using strongs in the air. And then for your ring and pinky fingers for both rows, you can honestly switch it up between grab, parry, shield, and the walk modifier. Now for the melee style controllers, here's where it gets fun. Obviously, you're gonna have your left row, and the pinky is gonna be shield. Then it's gonna be left, down, right. If you have a WASD style controller, then up's above your down input, but I like having it on the right pinky for up. You're not gonna need a walk modifier because on your left thumb you should have a modifier 1 or modifier 2 button, which makes a walk modifier obsolete. On your right thumb you should have attack, C-stick, up, down, left, and right surrounding it. Those are all default, so we're going to talk about the important part, which is the top row and the bottom row of the right side. So we already talked about the first row. That's where your pinky finger is going to have up. Above it is going to be attack, so you can do dash attack up smash or dacus. On your index finger you're going to have special, and above it parry. And the reason I have parry up there is so that you can instantly go for a parry, but you can also set your parry to do something in the air that's different than on the ground. And I like having it as wave dash or air dodge in this case, so I can use it to wave dash out of shield or wave dash onto ledge or something. For the middle button, I have it as jump as both the upper and lower row, and that's just to make sure that whenever I'm in the air I move to the upper row to use other types of buttons, and on the ground I have access to grounded options. So in this instance, my ring finger on the ground is grab, so on the bottom row it's grab, and then on the top row it's strong, and that means whenever I'm playing somebody like Raster that I have access to strongs where my Z button would be. And if you're used to melee and whatnot, then using Z as attack in the air should be second nature. It's just in this case I have it as strong just because if I'm going to be doing a regular attack, then I have the C stick for that. And that's pretty much the best layouts for all the different types of controllers that there are out there. If you have a special controller, I didn't mention it, leave a comment and I'll respond to it. I've literally been responding to every comment because I really like hearing what you guys have to say, and sometimes it leads to stuff like this where I make a video just responding to like one guy in the comments.